welcome to another midweek analysis video brought to you by Learnity. So as usual, starting from the DXY, if we start from the weekly time frame to carry out our top-down analysis, we can see that currently on the weekly time frame we are not breaking any new lows. Instead, we did manipulate over the sell side liquidity over here, an which is a relatively equal low. We did not close below that, but instead we have been seeing bullish candles. All right, so one thing we can notice on the weekly time frame is that we have a POI here in form of a weekly fair value gap. All right, we have that weekly fair value gap over here, and if we look at the weekly time frame, we can also see that we have a old high here, which can serve as a buy side liquidity. All right, and we still have relative equal highs over here, of which we have traded into but not expanded away from. All right, so one thing that is clear is that this high over here has been broken, and as this high is being broken, all right, we can anticipate this as an internal range liquidity, which is the weekly fair value gap, and this old high as an external range liquidity. And we all know that price moves from internal to external range and from external to internal range liquidity. So we can also classify this as an external range liquidity over here, and if this is an external range liquidity, we can be anticipating for what the internal range liquidity to be our next target, right? So if we go into the daily time frame, we can see price closing and trading below two up close candle and also an old high. All right, which can we can say that this is a liquidity sweep. Price has traded and closed below this area. So what we want to see on the daily time frame is a scenario like this. We want to see price actually resist and keep going down into this weekly internal range liquidity over here. So if the price of today's trading day, which is Wednesday, should close like this, would have a fair value gap on the daily time frame, and then once the price trade into that area, take out some buy side liquidity and continue going lower. But to explain this further, we can go into the 4-hour time frame, and we can see that there are a couple of what areas of POI interest here, which are these old highs here. All right, this is not visible on the 4-hour, but if you go into the 1 hour, we can clearly see that these are old highs. All right, so if these are old highs, we want to see price manipulate them and show us a breakdown of structure on the 1 hour time frame, and we can start hunting for sales. So what would this mean on the foreign currencies? It means that on Euro USD, we can potentially be looking for a move like this. All right, a move to manipulate the 1 hour lows over here, and then for price to use that as a point of, you know, or as a point of interest to push further to attack old highs. So if you go into the daily time frame also, we can see that the euro USD is just the opposite of the dollar index, and we also have an SMT, right, which is a smart money trading divergence for the smart money traders over here. So like I said on the DXY, just the opposite of the scenario on the DXY is what we'll be looking at on Euro USD. So if the price on the daily time frame should close like this, then we're waiting for a manipulation beneath this low or a daily fair value gap for price to drop into that and come to take out this old high here. And also we have another old high over here. All right, so these two areas are the areas I'll be looking for to trade this week. All right, so we need to give price that time to trade back into this area and look for movement, break of structure, engulfing candle pattern, and any other entry pattern you usually use when trading. Right. Also on the 4-hour, you can see that we also still have a fair value gap over here, which is another point of interest for us on Euro USD. All right, on the lower time frame. So this could as well be our move for this week. So what we are doing is going to be waiting for price to drop into this area at around 1.15400, and would look at the structure formation on the 1 hour time frame and find our entry pattern to target 1.66 big figure. So this is it for the midweek analysis. If you're going to be trading alongside this narrative and idea, please do remember to use appropriate risk management sizes and make sure you do not over leverage. And until I come away again next time, remember to always trade well and trade safe.